Well, hello there, superb internet and you fantastic creatures of the beyond. I'm trying something new today. I put music in the background. I don't know if this video is gonna make it on YouTube or not because of the music. I mean, the music is copyright free, but yeah, you never know with these YouTube things. So, I was thinking of brushing our skills today with the brush tool because I've been omitting this thing, but as I'm learning to digitally paint, I think this is an important topic because, as I have discussed before, I did tell you guys make your own brushes, but I don't really show you how to make your own brushes, do I? I'm such a little bastard. So, there are a few things to take into account. Let's see. So, this is my brush set right now. And I've added a few extra brushes here and there, nothing crazy. Most of them are just very basic. But for example, this one and this one and this one are a bit special, and I'll demonstrate. So right now I'm in a huge canvas, so I'm just zooming in a little bit more to have, I don't know, I don't really like having, sometimes I just go out of bounds like I do in Inkscape, and this one doesn't offer me that option, so I just made a super huge canvas so I can just zoom in a lot and start painting in. So I'm just painting with the black color, and right now if I do something like this, nothing special, but if I do something like this, ooh, you see, doesn't just go directly into dark, it's based on the pressure. And if you've seen those crazy beautiful art designs where digital painters are like leaving those edgy water, I don't know, washed out edges like this is how they do it, and I'll explain today how to achieve this. Of course, it's a bit finicky in this software. It's not the most perfect software, Affinity Photo, for this kind of stuff, but you can achieve this effect in any raster software out there. It's not just Inkscape, obviously, and more or less they have kind of the same settings. But let's go to this one now. So a few days ago I wanted to do something like this, and I was doing it line by line. I was like, oh, why am I struggling so much? Why can't I just make a brush that does this? No, this is so cool. All I wanted to do was like brush some things like this out of curiosity if I could, and it's so easy. See, such an amazing little tool. All you have to do is just figure it out a little bit. And then the piece of resistant. Oh, sorry, not this one. The piece de resistant. This one. Really love this brush, because this brush gives a little bit of extra texturing. And you might think, well, what is this brush? Well, if we zoom in and we just click once, this is what this brush is. A series of dots. Absolutely nothing special. The only difference is that these dots are being are of different intensities. I don't know, let me see if I can make it stronger. So some of the dots are a bit washed out and some of them are a bit stronger. That's the only thing. And when you do things like this, you get interesting textures like that inside your paint. Of course, this one is a bit tricky to paint with because if you're trying to make like roundish kind of objects, it's going to be tricky. Like even for a circle, you see, I can't actually achieve a circle with this because of its elliptical shape. But you can do this with basically any brush in any form you want. That's not an issue. So let's see how we actually make a brush. Well, if I want like to make, let's say, I don't know, let's say a polygon brush like this. Okay, so this is pretty much a vector design right now, what we have in here. Basically, you can achieve this with Photoshop. It has the rectangle tool, but you can also do it with the pen tool if you want. You know, you can just apply some shapes like this, and there you go. And the advantage to this is that you can edit it however you wish. Of course, you need to edit it with the node tool. Oh, actually, these ones you can't, because these ones are predefined. Anyway, this is less important. I think you can transform it into shapes. Convert to curves, I think, yeah. And now you can edit it with the node tool. Yeah, there we go. We're smart. And this one is kind of an object mode, like we have in Inkscape. I correlate a lot to Inkscape, but it's the easiest way I can explain it. So, let's say we want to make this. I'm just going to make the fill black. It's important that when you make a brush, it has to be black. What the hell is this? Ooh la la, I like this. Well, let's make it like this, why not? And we can even angle it if we want, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll leave it like so. Let's remove the stroke. Just make it invisible or not assigned. What should we do here? Well, actually, I could make it... should I make it empty inside? I don't think it's worth it. But then... if I leave it like this, it's gonna have these edges like so. I like that it snaps here. Yeah, it's quite cool. Anyway, so if we're gonna do it, this is the amount of information, pixel information we're gonna get out of it. Depending how big you make it, it's less pixelated on the edge. So since this is a vector, you see? But I would do it something like, I don't know, 100. Let's leave it around 200. And right now, all we have to do is select it, copy it. You know how to copy, I don't have to show you. And now I'm just gonna make it past from new from clipboard. And this is gonna select my shape. Now, if I save it, I'm gonna save it as PNG. So I have the background invisible, transparent. And I'm gonna put it here in downloads. So let's call this sneaky brush. I don't know. I'm out of ideas. So the way I do this, it also depends from software to software how you implement this brush and how you save it. But if you want to make a custom brush in Affinity, you have to do it this way. So this is sneaky brush that we are implementing, right? So we're gonna go here. We're gonna go new intensity brush. We're selecting our sneaky brush and we say open, and it's gonna be here at the end. Now if I'm gonna go into brush mode, let's try to paint with it a little. It's not painting, what the heck. stick. Hey, brush. Oh gosh, yeah, I'm not having a paint. I mean a swatch. I mean, you know what I mean. So right now it's doing this thing, which is not very favorable. But we can fix this. So in order to fix this, I'm gonna go to my brush here, and I can either click on more here, or if I want to edit this specific brush to remain with the settings that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just click edit brush. It is a bit different than clicking more, otherwise you have to update the brush after you've done the settings. But when you click edit, it's gonna set up these things. So the first thing that I want to do is remove the spacing. So right now, if I'm gonna try to brush, we see that it's quite clear. But if I press like really gentle, we see it's not changing anything else rather than nothing else. So we want to give it a bit of dynamics. Dynamics means, for example, if I'm gonna give accumulation and flow, and I set this to pressure. Now if I gently click, you see, and I apply pressure, bam. So this is how we achieve those interesting looking things with little textures in them. So okay, that's cool. We can also apply a rotation if we want. Rotation is a bit weird. Right now it's random, so it goes however it goes. But if I put it based on direction, for example, it's gonna follow the direction of where I'm going with the pen. So if I'm going like this, it's a bit smoother, and if you go really fast, it's gonna be even smoother. So it's an interesting little thing, but I'm gonna remove it for now. And for the size jitter, obviously this is, you don't have to go to 100%, obviously, I'm just messing around. So it's already set on pressure. So if I just click and put a lot of pressure, then it's gonna become bigger and bigger and so on and so forth. But you can see, quite cool. So I'm gonna remove this as well. But I like this. But there is one particular thing. If we go bigger, you see the edges are quite sharp. And if we want to change that, we can't, because the hardness is not available. And this is because there are two types of brushes in Affinity, and actually I think it applies to every software out there. So there are these raster brushes that you make custom in any shape you like, or pattern, and we're gonna discuss about patterns in a moment. And then there are the normal brushes that come with the software, and those are the rounded brushes like this, for example. If I go to this one allows me to edit the hardness to however I want it. And with this one, if I'm on hardness 80, you can see it's a feathered edge. But the cool thing, and this one has some spacing, this is why it's creating this, I don't know, curves. If I would go with this other one, which is the same one, but it has no spacing, you see, I'm not creating those bumps. Anyway, so if I want to create a brush that has this feather edge, then what I have to do is go back to this one, and I'm just gonna duplicate it. I don't know why these things don't disappear. So if I duplicate it, and yeah, these thumbnails are not updating, whatever. And I'm going back into the node. No, come on, the polygon tool. Okay. With this one, what we could do is apply a Gaussian blur. And in Photoshop, you have to go to filters and you have the blur here. But yeah, Affinity is a bit more friendly and it puts it here as well. And there are other things here that you can do. So let's say I'm gonna give this, I don't know, something like a 0. I could go with a 3. Maybe 3 it's too strong. I don't know, let's try 3. We shall see. So I'll just select 3. And now if I'm gonna, and the cool thing is this is non-destructible. So if I want to change it, I just come here and I disable it or so on. So this is really cool. So I'm gonna select this again. I'm gonna make it from the clipboard like I did before. I'm just using the shortcuts. And now if I'm gonna save it, I mean export it, let's call this Sneaky Brush 2 or Feathered or whatever. I'm just lazy. And now if I'm gonna go here and again, oops, what did I do? Oh, okay. Brushes, where did you go? What the hell is happening? Brush. Okay, I didn't. Oh gosh. Yeah, I think this is due to the recording. The recording, I mean the streaming, Twitch streaming, blah blah blah. That's not working too keenly with this software. So, import new intensity brush. Of course, you can also make other types of brushes. So let's take Sneaky Brush 2. And we selected this one. And usually it's gonna import it on 64. If you want to make it bigger, go on Edit Brush. Obviously, I'm gonna push the spacing, so it's gonna be fluid. If you want to change the default 64, you can just change it here. So I could go 128, for example. And now, another important thing, Affinity does this silly thing that if you go on a brush that has wet edges, it's gonna inherit that, and then when you come back to these normal brushes, if they have this option, do not set the wet edges, it's gonna apply it. So you can enforce with off here if you don't want it. Of course, you can make your custom edges here as well and apply whatever kind of gradient you want. I mean, this whatever this is. And you can also associate it with a tool here, which is really nice, and also can set up the automatic blend mode. Usually it's gonna be normal. But this is less important. These are just settings that are more akin to Affinity Photo, but as I said, from software to software you have, well, kind of the same settings, but they're in different bushes, you know? So you kind of have to go through all of them. But I think that Affinity is quite nice in this regard. So, going forward from here, we want to, let's hide these things. So let's paint with our new brush, which is now at 128 pixels as we set it. So now if I do this, you see I have a feathered edge, which is really nice. And it looks decent. Usually I like feathered edges because it makes blending between, well, not really blending. It's when I color one swatch with another. Let's say I'm gonna take this swatch like so. And let's say we put another layer separate. Let me go something more orangish. I'm gonna go like this. You see, it's not a sharp edge, it's easy to mix the two. If I want to just mix the two, I just combine this. And then I go to my smudge tool. And now the cool thing about the smudge tool is that I can select whatever shape I want. So I can go with this one, for example. Obviously, strength 50, it's a bit strong, and the flow the same. Usually I like to put it on 40 or something like that, but right now I'm just trying to mix these two colors. You see, it's too strong, so let's try a 40 or a 60, I don't know. And we can already see that our eyes are starting to see this whitish, well, more lighten orange here at where the mixing is happening. But in actuality, it's just a trick of the light. It's not really there. So this is how you mix the two. Obviously, this is a very bad mixing brush. Usually I go with something like this. It makes it a bit smoother, although now I kind of ultra mixed it in there, so there we go. Getting, and what I like about this technique is that we're creating this sort of pattern in here, but not really a pattern, more like a texture. It comes naturally. Oops, that's too much. Based on how you move on the, and this brush is obviously too big. I can make it a bit smaller. And the thing is, when you're smaller, you're applying less pressure, technically, so you can't pull too much of the color. But it's nice. Messed it up here. Anyway, so you can see it's starting to become this light orange, but in actuality it's not there. It's just our eyes trying to, our brain actually trying to compensate these colors in between because they're so close. Orange and red are very close on the color, that's why. If it would have been a complementary color on the opposite side, a more cold color, then the distinction would be clearer. Anyway, so this is one way to do a brush. The other way is to do like a round brush, which comes naturally automatically as a simple brush. Come on, paint. Why can't I paint with it? Oh yeah, well, I can't paint because I'm not in the brush. This is something I don't really like about Affinity. It's not telling me what tool I am in. So if I'm gonna do this, this is just a normal brush. But it already comes predefined with hardness and so on, so it's not really that crazy. So I can just remove it, because we do not need it. The other type of brush that we can create is a square brush. And I find this interesting. But the applications are not that many with the square brush. I mean, you can make your own square brush if you want, with the square tool or whatever, rectangle tool. No? Is it called? Yeah, rounded rectangle tool, yeah. And what else? What else? This brush. We can make an image brush, but I don't have an image prepared. Basically, it's more like, these ones these are more akin if you want to make a cloud, for example, and I'll show you guys a few examples. And brush from selection, but I found this one kind of finicky, so you can make a selection from something here and it creates your brush, but it doesn't look so super. You don't have so much control over the shape and things like that, so I tend to avoid that. Now, why do I tell you guys to always make your brushes? Well, let's try, some of these brushes come with Affinity, but for example, I downloaded this one. So let me clear this canvas here. Come on, go away. And now, if I look at this, let's take this one for example, okay? I'm gonna go with the default color. So if I'm gonna paint with this, you see it creates this awesome, interesting designs and blah, 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 blah. Really awesome. But I ask you, where are you going to use this brush and how are you going to apply it and for what? Hmm? What's the point of using this brush if you haven't created it and it doesn't have any purpose for you? Obviously, it does have a purpose for me since I downloaded this pack, but believe it or not, I use something very simple from here. I don't remember exactly what. I think it was something like this to create a texture for something. I can't remember, but one of these things. So you can see that I think this brush, if you look at it, no, it's just one texture. We're gonna get into textures soon enough. Sub brushes are if you want to mix another sub brush into it, but this is advanced stuff. Yeah. So the thing is, the person that made this this pack with the brushes, he made it for himself. He used it in his works and then he shared it. But you know, you're not gonna make his works. You're not following his art style. And as I did that thing with the four little circles that create those lines, I needed it specifically for something. Probably I'm gonna use it in other things if I like it, but most likely it's gonna stay there and I'm just gonna play with it here and there, but it's not gonna be something used every day. As I told you guys, I only use the basic brushes most of the time. 90% of the time is just the basic brushes. And those more let me go back. So these other brushes that have different kind of shapes, I usually use them with the eraser, or if I want to create a negative space or something like that. But as I said, 90% of the time I just use these rounded brushes, and they just have little tweaks, nothing special about them at all. And these are more set up as being as texture brushes, but they're not really texture, but they're just kind of to give something more interesting when I do something with them, so they don't look so flat. They give a bit of three dimensionality to the drawing, but it's just very subtle, not very important. Now, for example, dry brushes. I really like dry brushes that comes with Inkscape because this can be used for things like creating, I don't know, some grungy effect on a background, or if you want to do some interesting lines like this, like a crayon line. I don't know, there are many applications to this. Let's actually try a grungy thing. Let me use some dark oranges. Oh, this one is too small. Let's take this one. Let's make it bigger. And I'm just doing random things on the screen, nothing important, right? So let's say I'm gonna make this a very dark color. So let's apply a very dark color. Like so. Actually, I can apply a gradient altogether. Let's go something like so. I really like this. And we actually can apply this effect on... shoot. Can't I apply it here? I should be able to apply it. Ah, yeah, actually I have to put it like this. And now I have to do it like this. Yeah, I remember. But it messes up my colors. So let's go back to that. And let's make this one. Oh, I can even push it to the reds like this. You see how awesome it is? Actually, what happens if I want to... Ah, that just rotates it. Ah, this looks interesting. I can put it a little bit in an angle. But this is gonna be permanent. The moment I take the gradient away, it's gonna be moved. You can kind of do it with various... I mean, there is another way to do it that's non-destructive, but I'm not gonna bother right now. Or maybe I should bother. Why do I say I shouldn't bother? I should bother. Let me teach you guys the correct way to do it. So if you don't want to lose this gradient and you want to edit it in the future, what you do is not a background, but rather let's create a new thing. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna go create a rectangular thing just to encompass the texture. And now on this rectangular thing, I can set up the gradient. Let's say I go like this. Wait. Did I set it up? What's this? What am I doing here? Okay, I think it works now. Let's see. So I said I'm gonna give this a red and I'm gonna push this one into the oranges. So now if I take if I click anywhere else and I come back here and I reactivate this gradient, you see it remains. This is because it applies to an object, in this case the rectangular tool. So it stays here. So if in case I want to edit it later or add more colors or blah blah blah, it's really cool to have it like this, non-destructive. So as you can see, it's really nice to have brushes that can make some interesting backgrounds and whatever grungy effects. But let's look at let's see, where is it? For example, I'm going to look at concept art brush. Oops, brush. Okay, this one has a nice effect to it. As we can see, the more we paint, the more we realize there is a texture applied to this. I mean, it's an embedded texture, and I'll explain in a moment how this is created. If we look at this brush, we have the standard settings. Nothing related to dynamics, but when we go to textures, there is an image texture here applied to it. So basically this image repeats infinitely in both direction, up and right. And you're just basically masking it in a way, you know, or unmasking it. It's really nice. And you can even change the scale of this if you want, you see. You can go something more smaller if I want to. And so on and so forth. It's quite cool. But again, where are you going to use this brush? This was created intentionally by the designer. And you can make really, really awesome things with it, but you have to know what to do with it, where to use it, when to use it. And I was telling you guys about the image one. Like, for example, I can create these things that are kind of unique in a way. You can create clouds, you see? Different types of clouds. Obviously, if I pull like this, it's gonna create a weird smudge. But if I just click, 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 obviously this follows also the direction where the mouse or the what's it called, the pen is going. And the more pressure you apply to it, the bigger it is, you know, things like this. Another one, this one is more like a rock. These are environmental brushes. This is the side of a mountain if you want. You can combine them like this. They're cool, but again, you have to kind of envision where you want to use it. Wait, is it? For example, this one is really nice. This one is a foliage with flowers. So as you can see, if I can apply it like this, but unfortunately it doesn't have much of a, when it comes to randomness. So it doesn't change position or stuff like that. There are better foliages that do that. I think this one is one of them. Let's see. No, not this one. This one if you want to put them in a tree. But again, not much variety, unfortunately. So this brush pack isn't helping. Oh, look, seagull. This one is to create grass. But again, very static grass. This is for trees. Well, trees are okay if they're static. No worries with that. But these are more like stamp tools in a way. Let me see, I did have a foliage one under F. Vegetation. This one, yeah, this one is more random. See, I can make some really cool things with it. One thing that I used from here was the grass. And you can create some really cool grass. You see, it's creating a variety in how you're going left and right and so on. And then you can apply like a more lighter color. Maybe a little bit desaturated. And you can come over and give this three-dimensional impression of something. Like it's not static and so on and so forth. So really cool if you know when to use these brushes and for what to use them. They can simplify your work in certain aspects. And usually I tend to make them very small so they don't stand out, and just to give a profile to something in the background or whatever. Or depends, if I want to make a flat design, this one is really cool. And I can make another one like so. Actually, I'm gonna make it on a separate layer. And then I can just flip it horizontally, and tada, I made a L'Oreal, or however it's called. L'Oreal. Whatever. It's really, really cool. So let's talk a little bit about, we also have watercolors, although I don't paint with watercolors. I'm not a watercolor enthusiast, but they look really cool. Although I would have to say that Corel paint does it much better because it also mixes these colors. But probably this is an option here somewhere with certain... oops, I selected the wrong one. Oh, come on. With certain specific type of brushes that can mix things, but again, I'm not really sure how you do it. This one mixes the colors based on the last color you chose, so you can get an intermediate color with it. It's quite cool. And there are other types of brushes in here that I haven't explored altogether, like Anandando brushes, this type of brushes here. But anyway. Yeah, now they work. I don't know what happened there. I think I freaked him out a little. Now, the cool thing about these ones are they look quite interesting, and you can create some really amazing texture with them. I don't use them per se, but they're really cool. Now, let's discuss a little bit about why you should make your own textures. Like, I'm gonna show you some really cool ideas from some really cool painters that share their brushes. So for example, wait, how do I put it? Like so. I just realized that Waterfox has implemented this cool thing here. I haven't seen it before. It's really nice. Anyway, so look what you can paint with these brushes that are over here. You can download them. They're for Photoshop, but they can also work in Affinity if you want to apply them, because it's compatible. So you can see an example of how some of these brush strokes look when they're painting things like this. And clearly it's a canvas type of painting when they have some textures applied to them from the way that I see. But again, this artist created these brushes for what he needed. How would you recreate this with these brushes? I think it would be next to impossible for you, because you don't know the same technique. You don't have the same hand gesture when you're painting on the canvas and so on. So it's gonna become extremely difficult to use this the same way the original creator of these brushes used them. Although they're quite cool, most of them are just textures. And some of them have even forms and so on, if you want to use them like this, chain links and things like that. Be basic. I don't know where you would use this. Texture smudge. These ones are more specialized, and usually these apply into Photoshop because they have that tipping thing. I don't know, it's kind of crazy. But one that I really liked is this one. Look at these beautiful portraits and things like this. And these are the brushes. Well, a snippet of some of the brushes. There are plenty of brushes in there. But again, how do you apply this to this? You don't have the same techniques. You don't have the same style. You don't have even the same taste in art. Maybe this is not something that you go for. You like maybe more realistic tones or textures, and you don't like these smudges and sharp edges and angles and things like that. Even though they are cool, it's not maybe your style. And not all painters paint the same. Not all brushes in the world feel the same. Even physical real brushes that we use, you don't paint like this. You have to use specific type of color palettes and things like that to achieve this kind of design. Although this one is a bit more traditional in nature. I'm not gonna show you too many pictures from this profile because it has some nudes and I don't want to get in trouble. But for example, this one. And this is a style that I'm trying to embrace, designing from shapes. So you see, it's starting with a general shape of what you want to design and then slowly adding more details and then refining those details until you get something extraordinary. Obviously this is a portrait and it's a bit more straightforward, but when it comes to more dynamic designs that incorporate more elements or things that are an assembly, it becomes a bit more complicated. But the point is, the person that created this texture pack, this brush pack, sorry, created it specifically for his needs. And he knows where he wants to use them. And possibly you're not even designing this way, so you don't know where to start. But the point is, when you're starting to refine these details in the interior, you see they become more and more refined. This means that the original texture that you had from the, like you see here, there's some sharp angles here, like this, like small triangular shapes. They disappear here and even here. Why? Because he used the smudge tool most possibly here, I'm not sure. or he blended it some other way. But the point is that from this, which is very blocky and very sharp and so on, he came to this organic format, and then he combed through this with various tools, not necessarily brushes alone. But the point is, whatever brush you start with, eventually it's going to lose its original uh, texture or shape, because you're gonna want to refine it to something better looking. And then you apply different tones, different like highlights and shadows and mid-tones, and those have to blend in quite nicely. You see here, everything is quite a blocky mess. You don't have much in terms of highlights. You just have an expression of what things could be here, but it's pretty much in the shadow. But obviously, as we know from geometry, when light comes over certain things that pop out from the shadow, they create these thin highlights, like right over here. This image is not super high resolution, so I cannot show you better, but you get to see it. You have like the dark side and the white side, and so on and so forth. So yeah, applying it directly with these brushes in your style is gonna be an impossibility most likely. Or this one. Again, really awesome idea. Go full screen. But you don't apply these brushes like this. You wouldn't even know why he applies these brushes like this. And to get to this level of the, well, this is a very realistic portrait, of course, and this person has a lot of skill and talent. But the point is, he used his brushes because he knows when to use them and for what. So again, make your own brushes. I've shown you how to make them. You will most definitely find many tutorials out there for your specific software to help you craft your own. But keep in mind these rules, like don't make them too sharp. Put a little bit of softness around them. It can help when you're mixing colors. Try to make things that are useful for you. And even if you use it once, put it on the side. You never know. Maybe someday you will think like, oh, I'm really struggling with a specific shape. I should maybe reuse the thing that I did back then, you know? Or try to uh, reshape your brush then, you know, because you can create infinite brushes. That's the cool thing. Don't buy brushes. Really, don't go buying brushes. They're so easy to make. Just need to reverse engineer the ones that you find specific to you. So, for example, if you're trying to create, let me just get out of these things. Just my affinity. So, for example, go back to brushes. If I'm struggling to make a specific shape, say I'm trying to make an elliptical shape, why should I bother doing it like this when I can just take this? Then if I want to change the angle, I just rotate it a bit and voila. And I can just smudge it a little bit like so, just to give it a bit of an organic view. I don't have to struggle with this imperfection, you know? You have to know when to use a specific tool, because although round brushes are really awesome, they don't apply to every scenario. See, like in this case, I am really struggling. I picked the wrong one. I should go with this one because it has less, yeah, it's more fluid, see? And of course, being very rounded, I would have to change the dimensions as well to go around and create something a bit more akin to what I'm looking for. But yeah, you see, I personally like to make them a bit deformed because it gives them more personality to the shapes rather than just going with something very symmetrical. Even in this case, I try to not make it ultra symmetrical. You see, I try to give the impression of an ellipse, but kind of keep it there in the realm of, hey, look, I'm just messing up with some things outside of it, so not trying to look too inconspicuous. Yeah, plenty of things you can do with various things. All I've done is for 1 hour was smudging things. I'm actually thinking of making a video on how to create a human figure out of shapes and not out of lines, because I'm still experimenting and learning on my own for these things. I'm not yet perfect with that, but let me go and do a small demonstration. Like traditionally, if you would do it with lines, you would have to make a pose. Sorry, not like this. Make a pose. Like so. And then, well, I'm not getting the proportions correct either. So let's say something like so. And from here you have to kind of start building up, you know, the shapes of the hands and of the feet. Sorry, going like this, and then adding a head that's too big. I don't know. Obviously the proportions are off by a lot. And from here you start building up, actually I forgot the neck. You start building up the shapes of the body. And so on and so forth. Have to put here the pelvis and so on. This is very exaggerated and ugly. I know. Don't judge me. I'm still learning. But I'm trying not to do it this way because it's, I don't know, it doesn't feel too great for me to start with lines. And I think I'm trying it to do it the hard way, to be honest. But if you would start doing it with shapes, let's say with something like this, I would put something, for example, a circle. I would start with a circle, and this is kind of orienting, like which way do I want to look? Do I want to look like this way or that way, you know? I can choose. And from here, like to make a more three-dimensional view, from here I can just think like, if this would be my torso, maybe I could go with something like this, and then I can make the pelvis over here. So this would be the shape of my torso. And from here, well, probably a little bit more bulky. Let's try it like this. Yeah, this looks better. And let's put it more like so. A little bit more angle to the buttocks. You have to make a good bottom. So this is the shape of the body. Obviously the feet are going to get out of the, I don't know, I always kind of tend to get out of the edge of the canvas when I'm drawing, painting. So I can make a small head over here, and then we add a neck. And from here we kind of have to imagine the three-dimensionality because we're looking this way. So if I'm gonna push some arms like this. And maybe I can push. This is becoming tedious. I have to make it smaller. Let's make it something like this. See, I'm starting to already get a shape of something. Here I can make an impression of a palm, and the finger is gonna go this way, the big finger, and then I can just put the other ones like so. This brush is not perfect for this. I'm still experimenting, so I don't know. Maybe I should make it a bit more simplified. Let me see. Maybe something like this. And then let's say I put another arm from over here. Kind of trying to mirror the same thing. Putting this here. Obviously this is gonna be smaller. We can even, like, if we mess up something, we can just take the eraser and try to remove the imperfections. Again, I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm just prototyping here. And then for the feet, you do something like so. And then, I don't know, something like this. And then let's say we make him like pushing something, I don't know. Come on. Yeah, that looks nice. And the thing is, you have to work with simple shapes. Like for example, here we can see that this part is more or less quite straight. Then you have this, that's too big. Then you have this, these shapes over here. Obviously this hand is not perfect. And this one has to be a little bit more dynamic over here. Maybe I put too much into the back here. And then you have this kind of complex shape over here going like this, you see? It's more rounded if I want to simplify it. So we can do things like this. They're quite nice. But again, I'm not an artist yet. So the proportions are very off by a lot. I'm still trying to learn how to do gestures and things like that. And to be honest, for gestures, you kind of have to do stick figures, because actually when we were small, we were doing these small things like this. Let me just get a more traditional. So we used to do things like this. Well, in reality, it's not changing too much. All you have to do is just make the head a bit bigger. Then for the body, you go something more or less like this. It's not really the spine, but you know, kind of gives the idea of where the body goes. And then you have to create the shoulder blades. This is the joints from the shoulder blades to the arms. Then let's say I'm going to make another one here for the pelvis. And from here you just go like, I don't know, maybe this pelvis is a bit too wide. You go something like, let's put it something like so. And then something like so. Have another joint here. and we're gonna have small joint like this, and let's do something like this and something like so, and I don't know, something like this, something like this, something like so. No. You see, not much big of a difference from this to this. And then if we want to do the rib cage, we go like this, for example, and for the pelvis a little bit like this. Maybe less of a gap here, maybe a bit bigger. And then you start building up the shapes like so, as I showed before. Maybe you do this, this, and the same for the arms. And there you go, an expression. Obviously that leg is going too much out. Should be a little bit more inwards. Anyway, yeah, something like this, more or less. I still have to work on some of these distances, but from this to this, it's an improvement. And then from this to the shapes directly, it's a much bigger improvement, I think. Actually, let me see. I did make a few examples. Open recent. Like I did this one from this one. And I did one more. Open recent. Again, not perfect poses. But the principle is kind of the same. I just go directly with I start with the body, then I apply the head, and then I just move to the limbs. Although the limbs could use some improvement, and maybe then we can add shading and so on. But as you can see, like the half part of the body should be mirroring the lower part of the body in size, I mean. So it's like half and half. And here we can kind of see it the same. And here as well, you know, like this is the center over here where the groin is. Anyway, I've scribbled enough today. We'll leave some more for next time. Who knows, maybe I can improve those shapes and we can create more realistic tones and things like that. And then we can play with more interesting designs and concept arts. Okay guys, stay awesome and I'll catch you next time. Bye 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 bye.